on the House Judiciary Committee and as the Democratic Caucus Chair. Congressman, thank you.
Good morning.
Very much for being with us today. Jerry Connolly, a key member of your caucus, said that he looks at this as a 10-course meal now, the various investigations. I want to know what's the first, second, and third course here. What order are you going to go after this in?
Well, there are three different committees of jurisdiction. Oversight will have a role in how we move forward, the Judiciary Committee and the Intel Committee. The Intel Committee, of course, is going to focus on national security matters. The Judiciary Committee will focus on matters inherently connected to the Constitution, obstruction of justice, abuse of power, things of that nature. And then, of course, you have the Oversight Committee, which has already begun its work relative to what may or may not have taken place as it relates to the Trump real estate organization. The American people deserve to know whether Donald Trump is functionally a president or an organized crime boss.
Okay, you say organized crime boss, right? I've heard other Democrats say they have seen evidence of crimes now, including crimes committed while he's in office, correct?
Well, we're at the beginning of the process, not the end of the process, and we have the Southern District of New York, one of the most prestigious U.S. attorney's offices that is engaging in an ongoing investigation. I think we're going to have to wait till that concludes, but begin to present information to the American people. Michael Cohen himself detailed the whole bevy and menu of potential criminal activity that seems to have occurred.
Yesterday, we had David Cicilline say crime spree. Today, you said organized crime boss. Again, these are phrases that indicate you believe that there were serious infractions here, serious issues, crimes. Jerry Nadler, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, you were just talking about that, said, yes, we have unambiguous evidence that the president has committed a crime at this point, I think. And this is the key here. Do we have unambiguous evidence he has done impeachable offenses? We have a ways to go yet. So what's the difference in your mind between unambiguous evidence of crimes and unambiguous evidence of impeachable offenses? What's the difference?
Well, I wouldn't necessarily lay it out in that fashion, though, of course, I think Jerry Nadler has been one of the most thoughtful congressional leaders on a whole host of issues, including with respect to how to conduct appropriate oversight. I think we're not focused on whether the president has engaged in treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors, because we have to wait for the Mueller report to run its course and then be presented to the American people, which we plan to make sure occurs as Democrats. We do have a separate and co-equal branch responsibility to serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch, and we're going to continue to allow that to run its course as well.
But it sounds like you're dancing around the issue here, because Michael Cohen, much of what he testified to had nothing to do with the Mueller report or was tangential to it. Either it's in the Southern District of New York in their purview, or it's other events all the way together. So you don't need to wait for the Mueller report to say you have seen evidence of crimes in terms of the payoff to Stormy Daniels, the hush money there. That's not part of the Mueller report.
Well, Michael Cohen is a singular witness. He laid out a whole series of individuals that the Oversight Committee is going to have to
But you said organized crime. Cicilline said crime spree. Nadler says unambiguous evidence of crimes. So there are Democrats who say they've seen crimes already.
Yeah, I phrased it as a question that I think the American people deserve answers.
So you haven't seen, you're not willing to sit here this morning on March 1st and say, I have seen evidence of crimes.
There's colorable evidence that there was wrongdoing that has taken place. Whether that rises to the level of criminal activity, I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
There are Democratic activists who would like to see you be more aggressive here. They don't necessarily see the need to be as cautious as Democratic leadership, which you're a member of, as the leadership is being right now. Tom Steyer, who's a big funder of different Democratic causes, I should say, he said this. He said, you cannot uphold the rule of law and say we are not going to prosecute the president. We are not going to hold him to account. We are going to throw out the Constitution because it's politically awkward for us, because it makes us harder in an election.
It's not about political awkwardness for us. It's about what did we promise the American people we would focus on? And we promised that we were going to fight for the people, for working families, middle-class folks, senior citizens, the poor, the sick, the afflicted, and veterans. The other side of the aisle, they fight for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected. The campaign that we ran in order for us to take back the majority, thanks to the grace of the American people, was to focus on lowering health care costs, protecting people with pre-existing conditions, strengthening the Affordable Care Act, increasing pay for everyday Americans, enacting a real bipartisan infrastructure plan, and cleaning up corruption by bringing our democracy to life. Those are the promises we made to the American people. Those are the promises we should keep to the American people. And that's why we're focused on kitchen table pocketbook issues.
And so you're telling Tom Steyer impeachment isn't one of those priorities now?
There's no evidence that in any campaign, in all of the seats that we were able to flip from red to blue, our candidates ran on impeachment.
Okay, but what he's saying is it's not about a campaign issue. What he's saying is if there's a crime that's committed, he thinks that that is reason to begin the process.
Well, I think, as we've said, we have to allow the Mueller investigation to run its course, and then for the Mueller report to be issued, we have to allow the Southern District of New York's investigation to run its course. And simultaneously, we can begin our oversight responsibility.
I want to ask you about another. Obviously, there was some friction during the Cohen hearing yesterday between Rashida Tlaib, a new member of Congress from Michigan, a Democrat, and Mark Meadows from the Freedom Caucus, a longtime Republican. And there were charges. Did she call him a racist? And has things he said and done, were they racist or not? There was a moment on the House floor yesterday. I want to start this on a good note. Draw your attention to Rashida Tlaib and Mark Meadows. They actually met, they talked, and you can just see them there. It's hard, but you can see the photo there. They hugged it out on the House floor yesterday. Whatever friction they had, they hugged it out. Do you have any comments on all this?
Well, I think in terms of interpersonal relationships between members, it's important that we can agree to disagree without being disagreeable. And so that was a good moment. And although it's not often projected, Democrats and Republicans do work closely together. We were able to pass historic criminal justice reform last year and convince the president to sign it into law that has begun the process of breaking the back of the mass incarceration epidemic that we have in the United States of America. And I can cite a whole host of issues where we really are trying to find common ground on behalf of the American people. But the issue that Congresswoman Tlaib raised is a legitimate one in an era where we see increased division and an increased effort to divide the country. We as House Democrats are going to continue to try to bring the country together.
Congressman Hakeem Jeffries, thanks so much for being with us today.